Hi, this is the final video in the DAX 101. So let's do a little bit of wrap up here and let's review what we've done so far. And then I'm going to put some of what we've done together and add a few extra things to it to create a whole separate page. So let's start with the very first thing we did. We created a whole column of data by calculating our gross margin. So we said take all the column of data for total sales and subtract the total cost. And we ended up, if I go into my data mode and go to the end, I ended up with an entire column of data. And I did that by using DAX. Then I created measures, which are just formulas. And in the measures themselves, I went through and said, okay, show me the gross margin percent. So let's look at the green line first. I said, take the gross margin and divide that by the total sales. If my total sales happened to be 0, I would have ended up with an error message. So I changed it so that I could say, okay, use the divide function and take gross margin as the numerator and total sales as the denominator. And if there's an error message in this formula, make it 0. So I ended up with my gross margin percent. Then we went through and did a measure, an aggregation with iteration. And in this particular case, we assumed, okay, maybe we do not have the total sales amount. And if we want to calculate the total sales amount by multiplying the quantity times the item, we have to do that for every single line and then summarize it. And that was the aggregation with iteration. And so that's what we did right there. We then came through and added a count function or a count measure. And in this one, we called it invoice count. And we actually have it create a distinct count of all the distinct or unique invoice numbers, so that by item or by customer, we can see how many invoices there are. Then we went through and created a commission amount. And for this, we actually had to expand 2 different queries. So we had to use the related function. And again, this is a measure. So let's go ahead and put a few of these things together. Here on this particular page, I have the customer number, the customer name, the total sales, the gross margin, the commission, and the gross margin percent, these last 3 being unique columns that we added. And now I want to add something called the net margin. So I could see the gross margin, the profit on the item, less commission, so I can get a better feel for how much money I'm making for each item. And so to do this, I will do a new measure. And this new measure, I'm going to call it net margin. And this is going to be nothing but a math calculation of these. And so if I want to use measures in a formula, then it has to be a measure. So measures can be nested in other measures. So first I'm going to take my gross margin. Now that was a column we created. So I need to aggregate that and basically tell it how to display it. So I want to sum it up by however the row is displayed. And then I'm going to subtract from that the commission amount. And the commission amount I don't have to aggregate because that's already a measure and the measure is doing the aggregation for me. So this is all I need to calculate my commission. So I'm going to go ahead and just select that or commit it. And then we'll put the net margin down here in the formula as well. So now I can see how much money I've made for each one of these. Now I'm going to put a filter on for salespeople. And rather than using the filter icon, I think what I'm going to do is use the lined and clustered column chart instead. So let me drag this out. And I'm going to first take the salesperson name and drag that into the shared access. That looks good. And now I'm going to take, let's take the net margin and drag that into the column value. So now I can see how much money I've made by each salesperson. I can see profit information. But maybe I want to see the number of invoices on here as well. And so I'm going to put that in the line value. So I'm going to just come in and take my invoice count and drag it into the line value. And so now I have this value. So if I want to see all of Sandra's invoices, I just click there and I can see all of her invoices that make up this particular total. And you could see the number in my tooltip amount, $647,201.65 matches the number that we have right here. And so This is a great way to put all the pieces together. There's a lot more you can do. We've just scratched the surface on DAX, but I hope this helps.